Welcome to the Making Love podcast with Tish and Pastor Roy. This is where love gets real, faith leads the way, and marriage becomes something you actually enjoy. We're talking laughter, connection, and the kind of conversations that challenge what you thought you knew while giving you practical, faith-filled ways to make something that lasts. Whether you're married, dating, or just curious, this is your time to grow together, have fun, and create a relationship rooted in friendship, purpose, and connection. Because when love is made, it doesn't just last, it gets better every day.
Welcome back to the Making Love podcast. Today's topic is a deep one.
Yeah.
We're talking about how to survive after abuse in marriage. Many of you already know my wife's story. Her first marriage, which was not to me, she was involved with an abusive partner. And so she's going to really talk about the state of mind and what it took to change her state of mind so that she could get free and move forward with her life and find the man of her dreams. Yours truly.
Well, I'm glad I found the man of my dreams. You know, what's really interesting is that some people think that leaving the abuse is all that it takes. So like leaving the marriage was one thing, but leaving what it left in me was something completely different. And I really, this is one that I've thought a lot about because I know how difficult, number one, it was to leave. And I just remember how much it impacted me thereafter and how I had kind of gotten really hardened and didn't know that I would ever, have another relationship. Before we get really deep into this, I want to kind of share a little bit about how I knew, but didn't want to admit that I knew what I was getting myself into. And I think this is important because no one talks about this. No one talks about this. Most people will say things like, it wasn't until we moved in together that I found out who he was, or, once I got married, then he changed. But I bet for most people, there's a red flag. There's a moment in time where you know what you're getting yourself into. And I know that sounds hard, so I'm not saying that it's your fault, right? I'm not saying that you're making a choice to do something detrimental for yourself. But I am saying that there are often signs that we choose to ignore because, at least for me, I thought it's definitely going to change. Definitely when we get to ... Right. Once we get married, it'll be better. Once we get, because of course I was, had a baby early on. Once the baby's born, it'll be better. Once we get away from all of the, he was in the military. Once we get away from all of this, it'll be better. So there were so many signs that I just chose to ignore without realizing that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
We often meet people in ministry who are in that stage, and it's so difficult to share with someone what they're getting themselves into, because in that moment you are blinded. And we've been talking a lot about blindness at church, right? But we're blinded by what we think it's love. We're blinded by not wanting to disappoint family. So I came from a family, as you well know, of a long history of marriage, right? So my parents, when my dad passed away, they'd been married almost 50 years. My sister and her husband to this day are married, and they've been married about 40 years. There was just all of this history that I felt like I needed to live up to. So there was a part of me also that didn't want to disappoint family through getting a divorce or through not having a successful relationship. Whereas I'd never had a successful relationship.
Exactly right.
Yeah, never had a successful relationship at that point and didn't even realize it. And so I think that this particular topic is so important, and I'm speaking to specifically young women, but not only young women. And not only women, because we know that there are men that are also...
Absolutely. I grew up, I had a friend when I was a kid. He was an adult, but, that he was in an abusive
Yeah.
relation. His wife, she beat him like an old sheep.
Yeah. And let me ask you this: how often in other areas, in other relationships, in your family or growing up, were you aware of abuse going on in families or in relationships?
Oh, I mean, I had my aunt and uncle. I sat and watched it.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised.
Yeah.
I was surprised initially by the burst of violence,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was surprised at how well my aunt held her own
Yeah.
in that situation.
Yeah.
So I'd say she gave as good as she got,
Mm-hmm.
and by the end they were both like, covering one eye and just like, we can't keep doing this kind of a deal. But and then I had a cousin, so I mean, I've seen it. It's always been on the periphery. You don't talk about it.
Right.
At least not while the parties are in the room. You don't talk about it. Or while the kids are in the room, even though we see it.
Mm-hmm.
The adults would talk about it. But yeah, I think if people really sort of take a good look at their families, a lot of times they'll find that maybe it's not to the extreme. Maybe it's just somebody's controlling, but you'll see the dysfunction.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people have been exposed to it and really haven't really thought about it.
And that's the thing. I look back and I always think, how many of my friends were aware of certain things and no one ever?
Right.
I never. And I always look back and maybe I would have, told them to mind their business or whatever.
You probably would have. Most of the time, that's what they say.
18 years old at the time, I probably would have. But I always think back, man, if my aunt or my mom or my sister or my, friends would have said something and really tried to help me, I wonder if things would have been different. But people are so hesitant to bring up that kind of a conversation, especially when it's someone that they love and they don't know how they're going to react to it. And so this is what I want to hear people to hear. I served on the board for the Center Against Family Violence for many years in El Paso, Texas, specifically talking about these types of things, and went to the University of Texas, El Paso, and did talks about how to have conversations with people to help them to know that there is a different path and that there is a way of escape, and that they don't have to allow themselves to continue to remain in a situation that's dangerous, that is absolutely not for their good. And it's harmful not only physically, although it is harmful physically. And I know many people who've lost friends, lost loved ones as a result of domestic violence situation. Have a very, very dear friend who watched her mother get gunned down by a romantic partner right in front of her, and she was a child at the time. So it's definitely damaging physically, and it can be very, very dangerous. But what happens emotionally and what is carried forward after the fact is equally as damaging, right? The thing I want to kind of talk about is how we were able to enter our relationship, even though there was baggage, right? There were preconceived notions. There were thoughts that I brought into our relationship as a result of that. And how were we able to pass through it and get through it? I know we talked a little bit about the shampoo and the Walmart, so I don't have to go into that. Listen to a previous episode and you'll hear that story. But, what other things? And I also want to kind of talk about some of the things on the reverse, although you had never necessarily been in an abusive relationship to the extent that I have, you had some issues, anger issues and things that, we had to address as well. So
I didn't know we were going to talk about it.
Yeah, I bet you did. So what are some of the things besides that one instance? Did you ever find that there were times that I may take things more sensitive or more serious than you intended it to be because of my history?
Only every day.
Yeah, pretty much, right?
Because you joke with people, you play with people, especially like I grew up, when you're in high school, your romantic parties, you wrestle and play around, and you were never
Having
down
none of that.
to
None of it.
wrestle, like never.
No. Mm-mm.
And at first I'm like, oh, maybe I can't mess up her hair, but then you put braids,
Yeah.
and we still couldn't.
Mm-mm.
So there were things that carried over.
Yeah.
I remember the first time. Well, it wasn't the first time, but we were driving, and
yeah.
I was, I was driving fine, but you felt like I was driving too fast.
Yeah.
And you were literally afraid.
Yeah.
Of me running into something.
Yeah.
And I remember getting upset with you about why can't you? Don't you just trust me? I love you. I'm not gonna kill you in a car.
Yeah.
And then you explained to me what happened.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, all right, fine. I'll slow down, I guess.
Yeah. So one of the things that my ex-husband used to do, and I haven't gotten emotional about this in a long time, maybe never, but it breaks my heart to think that 18, 19-year-old Tish had to deal with this. You know what I mean? Had to go through this. But he would drive in a car on a wet road, like on a cliff or something that was already had its own danger. And he would go like 90 miles, 95 miles an hour. And he would say things like, I'm going to kill us both. And so anytime someone would go exceed the speed limit or, make me feel unsafe, all of that would come rushing back. And so, again, it's important that we talk about this because many times people don't realize that what they experienced in their previous relationships or what they even saw happening in their household, how much it impacts their current relationship.
We talked about love maps.
Yeah.
And sometimes abuse can inform your love map.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it almost always does.
Yeah.
And I'll say for me, and you all know we're unapologetic about who we are. We're pastors. We love God, and we live by the word. And it wasn't until I was literally set free. It took the power of Jesus to set me free.
Yeah.
Because there were years that when you say fear, I mean that fear that's like making me shake, and tremendous amounts of anxiety. It was so real for me.
Yeah.
It was real for me for a long time. And you also alluded to the kind of play fighting. And so in that first relationship, we would start play wrestling and fighting, but it inevitably always turned real. I remember we were literally playing, we were watching a TV show of some sort and, kind of playing around, and it ended up with his hands around my neck. And I was like, what just happened? What in the world just shifted? And so again, I'm like, we don't play fight. We don't wrestle. We don't do any of that, just because of what the memories that it brings and what it kind of reminded me of.
One of the things that I found challenging because these revelations don't come out all at once.
Right.
Okay. Don't drive fast. Don't play fight. Don't pay for the shampoo.
Yeah.
Like these things come out piecemeal, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to navigate, how do I deal with these things? And one of the things eventually that I began to feel is like, man, I have to sort of truncate my natural, behaviors in order to accommodate the baggage, the fears, the whatever, the trauma.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to have to always be thinking about editing myself because, you have whatever you're dealing with. But I know at one point, and I'm embarrassed to say it wasn't immediately, but I know at some point I got to a place where I realized if I love her and if I want a life with her, then I have got to not expect her to heal, but be a part of her healing.
Yeah.
And if that means I gotta edit myself to give her space for wounds to close, to give her space for scabs to fall away, then that's what I need to do. And I need to inconvenience myself so that she can heal properly so that we can have a life together.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that immediately, but eventually, and I'm at least grateful that eventually
Yeah.
I learned.
And I think on the reverse side of that, as you probably recall very well, there would be times when you would say something, and even in your, playing around or whatever, I would always want to correct it or, or say something. And it took me a while to realize it was because everything that was said in that first relationship was
Right.
very intentional, designed to damage, you trying to emotionally control or so on and so forth. And so I had to also be willing to reduce my sensitivity, if you will, to allow you to be yourself. Because
Exactly.
I realized there were points where I was beginning to notice that when I saw you with other people, you were much freer than you were when we were just having a conversation. And I began to see those differences and have to, even if my mind started to think it, I'd have to say, let it go, let it go, let it go.
Well, that's the thing about trauma. It has tendrils and it reaches
more places
than you would expect.
Yeah.
And until you get into a different environment, you really don't know how far the cracks have spread.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, you just have to be willing to do what's required to allow for, healing to happen.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not the one for that person.
So
in all honesty.
And if you're not willing to make that sacrifice.
Exactly.
And so what we think.
But let me just say though, before we go on, the sacrifices I made in the beginning were a seed. I'm reaping the harvest now, and I love it.
Yeah, that's good. I'll take that. I mean, the word tells us.
Also,
what?
You're gorgeous.
Why, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
The word tells us, especially to the husband, that he ought to love his wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it.
Yeah.
And that's a sacrifice that not many people are familiar with.
Correct.
Or willing to do. And so I applaud you for being willing to do that, because I know it was not easy. And I also know that for most people, they don't even realize that it's a necessity. There's a requirement of the relationship. We've alluded to this before. I don't know that we've had a full conversation about it, but I think we did. So we won't talk too much about it. But I remember, when I would want to tell you something that was bad news that, you would, for whatever reason, and you can maybe share where it came from or not, but
I'll share.
there was definitely, anger issues. And so because of my history, when I saw that anger, which I hadn't seen in you, in most times, I immediately recoiled and felt like, you know what? So we don't talk about this. We don't talk about that. We don't have these deep conversations because it's too familiar.
Yeah.
And although I never expected you to become violent, there was a part of me that always thought if I pushed too hard or if I say the wrong thing, it could happen because of my history. And so I just shut down and didn't tell you things at all.
Yeah. And I knew I would get frustrated easily for a myriad reasons. One, because I was immature and I always expected things to go to plan.
Yeah.
And whenever they didn't, I would just lose it.
Yeah.
But I was immature.
Mm-hmm.
I also had my own trauma from being in the middle of my parents' divorce that I hadn't properly dealt with.
Mm.
And so it sort of informed my frustration and how it came out.
Yeah.
And so I had to forgive them in order to release that frustration. I had to mature in order to be able to, when I was frustrated, express it in a way that wasn't destructive, but productive. And so we both healed and grew so that we could make a marriage that looks good, that feels good, that works.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that people have to understand.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my psychology professor talking about her marriage and how, the minute her husband stops making her happy, she's gone. And I thought to myself, how is that his responsibility?
For sure. Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
How is he supposed to make you happy when half the time you can't do it?
Right.
So I remember early on, and so when I got born again and I learned the role of the husband, I realized my goal is to give,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll keep giving until she is the thing that I need.
Mm.
And I will trust the process, because if I'm giving and the Bible is teaching her to love me and respect me,
Mm-hmm.
then everything comes together.
Yeah.
But I can't all of a sudden refuse to not give whatever it is that you need. And in our particular situation, I had to learn how to, not do some things that were within my nature in order to give you space and time to heal, and really to just respect who you are as a person.
Yeah.
And so I learned that, and it helped us tremendously. And at the same time, you understood what I needed.
Yeah.
Because, and I've said this before, I'll say it a million times, to me, above everything, loyalty.
Yeah.
And if I know nothing else, I know, you're my ride or die.
Absolutely. For sure. Always till the wheels fall off, right?
Mhm.
I just want to end this particular episode with just a reminder that, number one, if you know people who were in this type of relationship, at the very least, make yourself available.
Yes.
Because I was so young, and many are, not
Yeah.
all, but many are, that they don't realize that there is an escape. And I would also say be very, what's the word? I don't want to say cautious, but again, I've seen this get so dangerous. And so, if you need to get the right people involved, then by all means, I know here in Phoenix, there are organizations that you can talk to and get really great, information that can help you. I know in El Paso, you have the Center Against Family Violence. That's where we're from. So I know that one really well. And I'm sure in your city there are others. The Texas Council on Family Violence, which I'm also connected to in some ways. I know the director there. So reach out to people who can help and get information.
I want to offer you this also for people who want to help someone. There is an intimacy of abuse that friend of yours that you're wanting to help is trapped in.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to break the intimacy, but do it gently, just to let them know, I see you, I see what you're dealing with, I'm here for you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't smash it, just breach it and let them know, I see it. Yeah. It's not as, blinded. I'm not blind, I can see you.
Yeah. And so we look forward to seeing you back here next week on the Making Love podcast. I know this was a little bit of a deeper topic, but I think it's necessary, and know that you're not alone. And
Absolutely.
Just know this, I'm praying for you. I'll see you next week.
As we wrap up today's conversation, remember, marriage isn't just about getting through life together. It's about truly knowing, supporting, and enjoying one another along the way. When you create your relationship on faith, true friendship, and intention, love becomes something that grows stronger every day. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who means the world to you, and keep leaning into the kind of love that lasts. We'll see you next time, Love Podcast with Tish and Pastor Roy.